folks, and welcome to part 2 of my August reading wrap up. So I do think this is probably going to be split into 3 parts in the end, because I've read so much more even like now from the last time that I filmed and sat down. So I probably will end up squeezing it onto like an extra Sunday upload, hopefully. If not, it will be staggered throughout September. So let's get started. As promised in the last episode, the last wrap up, I am here to talk about Sun and the Void by Gabriela Romero de Cruz. This is adult fantasy, and I've actually done a full dedicated review for this one. I was kindly sent this my way by Black Crow PR, which was very kind of them. And it is a debut fantasy inspired by South American history and folklore. It's an epic sapphic fantasy of colonialism and country, ancient magic, and a young woman's quest for belonging. So if you do want to hear a little bit more about that, then feel free to check out my review. Next up, I completed an ARC copy. This was through Book Sirens, so thank you again to everybody that made it possible for me to get a digital copy. As usual, 100% my own thoughts and feelings. This one is Between Shadow and Flame, which is the first book in the Guthendarkas series by C.T. Bryce. They're actually 2 authors, a couple, and they write under a joined pen name. David has lived his life without consequences or connection. He finds his mum burning a letter from his estranged family. David searches for the truth. This one I ended up giving a 2 out of 5 stars, unfortunately. It did give me kind of Princess Diaries vibe, but for such a short book, I felt like the main bulk of the story, especially when it was the thing that was interesting me the most, which was the magic system, it just took too long to kickstart. I liked Basil the best in terms of characters, but he definitely lacked a bit of a backbone, or a lot of backbone really, and David started off really interesting as a character, but then he just felt like he was starting fights for the sake of it really, and I couldn't really align with his reasoning anymore. I didn't really like all the secrets and the lack of communication. Miscommunication is a big trope of mine in fiction and in real life, so I try to stay clear of it, and when that's used heavily as a plot development tactic, it just rubbed me the wrong way. I did enjoy the start, the magic, and the initial exploration of the castle setting, but that was just surface level enjoyment, unfortunately, and I will not be continuing on with the series. So that brings me to my new reading journal book. I've just started a big book and I've just written them out like this. So let's continue on. So I continued on with the Mortal Instruments books, and I read City of Ashes, which is book 2 by Cassandra Clare. I purely listened to the audiobook for this one, which was read by Natalie Moore, as I don't have the second novel physically. So the synopsis for this one says, is love worth betraying everything? Chloe wishes life would go back to normal, and she wishes she could spend more time with Simon, but the Shadowhunters world won't let her go easily, and Chloe's only hope to wake her mum from her magically induced coma is to find Valentine. But the stakes get ever more complicated when downworlder children are turning up murdered. So for this sequel, I gave a 3.5 stars. I will say I was kind of confused at how much time had passed, even though I had just pretty much finished the first book. The way the initial couple of scenes were, it kind of threw me off. I was a bit hazy to how long was supposed to have passed, but there is a really helpful timeline of setting. So I think the first book was like September, the other one was maybe November, if I remember correctly. I can't remember, I'll have to go over it again, but yeah, it threw me off a little bit. Honestly, all throughout this I was like, I just want Simon to be okay, and you're going to hear that repeated throughout. Like, I just love Simon. Throughout these stories I'm going to be going on about Simon, I'm sure. I don't want his experiences to progress into him becoming a villain, because I feel like it could easily become a villain origin story. And I don't want that for him, I really don't. The angst in this was real. I mean, if it wasn't angsty enough, I really enjoyed the high action, the fast pace. It created great enjoyment for me. But out of the 2, I definitely preferred book 1 in comparison, just that bit more. Next up, another audiobook. This one I borrowed from my library app, and this was Terraform, Building a Better World by Propaganda, who is a rapper and poet. This is a debut collection of essays and poetry, musician speak and and activist propaganda inspires us to create a better, more equitable world. And I gave this one an overall rating of 4.5 stars out of 5. This was amazing. I loved how the poetry was interwoven with the commentary, so it felt kind of essay based, but every now and then, well, quite frequently actually, you'd be hit with this really like relevant piece of poetry, and it didn't feel jarring in any way. There's a particular conversation on memory which was really hilarious but incredibly thought-provoking as well, and it felt very like a real example. Overall, I just thought this was a really eye-opening and informative piece. Next up, I did a buddy read with Ellie from Bibbidi Bobbidi Book, and we read The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. And yeah, I personally loved it. I need to check in with how she found it, because I'm not sure where she was at once I finished, but I really enjoyed this one. I gave it a rating of 4 out of 5 stars. We are following Amina, who is a pirate of infamy and one of the most storied and scandalous captains to sail the 7 seas. This is her tale. I felt like Amina was such a strong main character, and I really loved that we were reading from the perspective of an older woman who's seen a lot of life already and is coming back to this adventure-filled life after trying the quiet life, after settling down, and you know, her heart's still with the adventure. And it was just interesting to get that different perspective, because oftentimes with fantasy and stories in general, it's always the young and new and eager to explore, and you never really get a varied perspective of people from all different walks of life and different experiences. So I really enjoyed having her as our main character. I did some blended reading for this one. I actually downloaded the free trial for BookBeat to listen to whilst I was giving this a read, because I was really behind at one point and I felt like I was like taking ages, but we were both kind of taking our time with this book, so I needn't have worried. But I will say the narrators for the audiobook had excellent tone range and inflection, and it definitely helped bring the story more to life. All the characters were exceptionally written, and honestly my biggest thing that I would really look forward to hopefully seeing more of is more exploration of magic in potential sequels. Okay, all of these pretty much are now from BookBeats, because I wanted to make sure I could get like the most of my free trial, and they calculate their books through hours, so they give you 20 hours on like the standard service. So I was reading a lot of, or listening to a lot of really short books to make the most out of that time basically, and it's a service that I'd probably come back to actually. I quite enjoyed using it. So the next one I picked up was 19 Claws and a Blackbird by Augustina Battarica, and this was read by a full cast. We had quite a few different narrators for this one. It's adult horror and it released in June of this year, so it's pretty new. It's a collection of 19 dark, wildly imaginative short stories taking you into your darkest fears and most disturbing fantasies, and it was just so for me. I gave it a 3 stars. It was definitely an interesting mixture of odd and airy tales. Some were stronger than others. Of course, you're always going to find your favourites in a short story collection. I particularly enjoyed the story about Anita being a potential alien, but because I was listening to it, I just didn't take note of the titles of the stories, so yeah, I can't get back to it so quickly or easily. But yeah, it was alright. It was a good introduction to this author. I do have Tender is the Flesh, and I'm hoping to enjoy that more so, because I assume it will have more substance, like being a continuous storyline, right? But yes, it was okay. I then listened to We Should All Be Feminist by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and this was read by the author. It's a personal and powerful essay based on her 2013 TEDx talk, What Does Feminism Mean Today? I gave this one a rating of 3 out of 5 stars. I found it to be very user-friendly, and a simple start to questioning what it means to be a feminist and reflecting on that in today's society. It was interesting to see this in relation to culture as well. After that, I checked out Dirty Juwele, A Feminist Manifesto in 15 Suggestions, again by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, read by January Lavoie. This one is a statement about feminism today, again, see the theme, in relation to raising children, written as a letter to a friend, and I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. This had a strong selection of ideas. It was also pretty humorous and thought-provoking. I liked that personal approach that it had, because I feel like that's how we had that kind of humorous dialogue within it, within a quite serious topic, you know. Okay, second to last for this video, we have Whites on Race and Other Falsehoods, Tego Webber, and it was read by the author as well. This one is a reflection on racism, whiteness, and the mental labour required of black people to navigate the two. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars, and the main thing I noticed was that it definitely took a more sombre tone on the topic of racial justice and social commentary, but it was no less thoughtful. It was a great emotive piece for sure. And lastly for today's video, I listened to Tenderhead by Jay DeLisi. This one was another non-fiction poetry book, and this was a book that blends pain, love, joy and rage, reaching back and forth to depict queer black girls as current and timeless and utterly sublime as the night sky. What a lovely blurb. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars as well. I just wish there was more conversation on being queer, but overall this was a very empowering and beautiful poetry collection that I feel would resonate with a lot of people. So yeah, I will catch you guys in another video soon. You'll have to let me know if you've read any of these books yourself. Also, if you are a subscriber to BookBee in terms of listening to audiobooks, because they've also got like audio graphic novels and audio manga, which I didn't think was a thing, and they've got like ebooks on there as well, which is interesting. So it's not just a audiobook service, which is pretty cool. So yeah, let me know if you're subscribed to that. Any thoughts and feelings, feel free to chuck them down below, and I shall catch you in another video soon. Bye.